Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every Thursday, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today has been studying martial arts for over 25 years. He studied multiple styles, including karate, Aikido, BJJ, MMA, boxing, Krav Maga, KFM, and more. He was training to be a police officer when he decided to pursue martial arts full-time, was inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame in 2015. He writes the immensely popular blog, The Martial View, and has also written 2 books. His school is called Empower Martial Arts Academy, and he also plays piano and guitar. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Dan Holloway. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. So what we do with all my guests, we jump into the beginning. I want to know what led, where did that first spark come from, that first interest in martial arts?
Sure. Yeah. So definitely. Yeah, the number one question for everyone, I guess.
Yep.
So I started when I was 6 years old doing martial arts because I think, as most people do, they wanted, or their parents wanted, a little bit more confidence, a little bit of fitness. And I tried different sports before that, like football and things like that, but nothing really stuck that much. And I've always been on the shorter side. I'm only 5'5" on a good day. So I think my parents were always like a bit, okay, let's get him some confidence, let's teach him some martial arts, let's get him some fitness and things like that, and see how his energy goes from there. So yeah, I started with karate. I did that for a couple of years, enjoyed it while I was doing it. Good fitness, good flexibility. I wasn't a particular fan of the katas and things, even at that time, even at 6 years old. It wasn't really for me. It wasn't quite dynamic enough. So my journey in karate was fairly short-lived. After I think it was 2 or 3 years, I decided to move on. And
Which style of karate was that? Do you remember?
It was Wada-ryu, I think. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
nice.
it was Wada-ryu.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and it was a good. I think most people start in something like that, don't they? Doing karate or some similar martial art. But yeah, and then we saw a advertisement for Aikido at a local RAF base, and as a 9-year-old, I think at that point, I saw people being thrown around by the wrists and wrist locked and shoulder throwed, and just thought, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I need to get my hands on this and give it a go and see what happens. And then kind of 20 years later, I was still practicing it. So
wow.
Something hooked me in with that.
So at 9, that was pretty much your choice then. That's I mean, because obviously at 6, that was kind of your parents' choice, for what they picked. But at 9, you kind of had a little more of a say in that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. And like, we're talking 1996 now. So, or 1999, 98 maybe. Like, the timeline's a little bit fuzzy. Maybe 98 actually. But there wasn't quite the same amount of information as to martial arts at that point. Like, the internet wasn't as big, or it wasn't even around at that point, I don't think. So it was just kind of what you saw in leaflets, or you saw taped up somewhere, like on a signpost or something. It was like, classes every Sunday, come and try it out. So it was kind of luck of the draw, maybe, in terms of what you got to train in and what was local to you. There wasn't the same amount of knowledge of striking, grappling, weapons, self-defense, sports, blah. It was just, what was local, I suppose. So, yeah, part of it was my choice, but another part of it was just, it was there.
So when you got into it then, you said you stayed in it 20 years later. What was it about that made you want to stick with it that long?
It was just the consistency, I think. I just always wanted to train in martial arts, and it was just the thing that I did all throughout my adolescence. Like, usually when, like, I know some of my kids now, they'll drop off maybe at 12 or 13 and go do something else, but then they'll come back at 15 or 16. But for me, it was just a constant thing that I just always wanted to train in martial arts. And at that point, it was specifically Aikido. So I kind of rose up the ranks, I suppose, and became like a junior instructor, then became an instructor, then started running my own classes, then I got junior black belt, then I got my adult black belt. And then from there, I went and trained with, some of the best people in the world in terms of Aikido, which I was very fortunate to be able to do. And that kind of accumulated in me training in Australia for a month as a living student.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, under Joe Tambu-Shihan, which was tough. Let's say, it was a tough month in training in kind of 38 to 40 degree heat, training 8-9 hours a day.
Wow.
as a 20-year old, like a bit naive maybe as to what it was entailing. But I went there kind of, naive, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and a month later, I think I was a little bit hardened up at that point. It was a tough month.
Wow. Now, you said at one point you became a junior instructor. When I was teaching something that you wanted to do, or did that something that all students had to at least do a little bit of?
I think it was just a natural progression, to be honest.
Okay.
It was just kind of what was done. Like, because I started Aikido quite early and because I was consistently there, it just seems a natural thing for the instructors at that point, or the school owners, to then go, oh, Dan, can you start taking a warm-up? Oh, Dan, can you just start leading this part of the class, or can you just lead this little section? And then that generally or gradually progressed into more of an official role, I suppose,
Okay.
in terms of being like a junior instructor, and then developing my skills as an assistant instructor, then an instructor, and then eventually running my own classes and things.
So what are some things that stand out to you about your instructor from Aikido? What, that you kind of remember, that the way they ran the class, or certain, things about them that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so I've had, like as I said, I've had different instructors throughout the years,
Right.
and all with different styles of Aikido as well. Like the main one that I've trained in is Yoshinkan Aikido, which is it's kind of seen as the harder version of Aikido. So it's less focused on circular movement and ki and all those elusive concepts. It's more focused on the body structure and kind of being in good positional alignment. And yeah, that kind of fitted more to what I wanted to do. It's seen as the harder style of Aikido, so that was what I was interested in. So the main teacher for me was Joe Tambu Sensei. He's the one that I went and trained with in Australia. He's got very dynamic Aikido. He's a similar stature to me. So yeah, it all fitted in at that point in terms of what I wanted my Aikido to look like. I wanted it to be fast. I wanted it to be dynamic. I wanted it to be applicable as much as it could be. And I wanted it to have some element of practicality as well, which I think is a big, not a concern perhaps, but it's a thing that people often criticize about Aikido, and its effectiveness in terms of street or reality-based self-defense.
Okay, nice. And at what point, at what level did the cross training start for you? Because you've kind of like me, you've been in a lot of different styles and kind of blended them. When did that start for you, and what led to that? Yeah,
so I started cross training probably when I was about 17 or 18. I think I started doing some boxing at that point just to get my striking up a little bit.
Okay.
I was grappling quite a lot and doing Aikido and things like that, but I wanted to get my striking up and improve that, and I wanted to improve my fitness levels and just have a bit of a general well-rounded view of martial arts as well. I was quite heavily into Bruce Lee and was watching all the Bruce Lee movies. I was reading the Tao Jeet Kune Do, and the whole emphasis of JKD is obviously taking what's useful and discarding what isn't, and then adding what is specifically your own or uniquely your own. So I kind of wanted to follow that path and see what was my kind of, not destiny, I suppose, but my kind of way that I wanted my martial arts to progress.
Right.
So I wanted to add some striking in, so I started doing striking. Yeah, a bit of boxing when I was 18, and then it really kind of took off when I started doing MMA when I was at uni. So I started training in mixed martial arts quite early on. I think it was my second year of uni.
Okay.
Trained for the second, third year, ended up with some very low amateur fights.
Okay.
And then in the fourth year, I think it was, so my master's year, I then moved on to becoming the vice president of the MMA club at that point. So I had a little bit more to say in what we taught in terms of like the admin of the group and the social side of it and things like that. And for me, it was CV building, because obviously that's part of the university experience, and being part of the society is really important, and kind of not just the academia, but it also got me involved a little bit more in terms of the mixed martial arts scene there at uni where I was.
So those couple like amateur MMA fights you had, was that your first involvement in any type of martial arts competition, or had you done competition before that in martial arts?
Yeah, I think I'd done a couple, like I say, I'd done a couple of low-level karate competitions before.
Okay.
But again, I was so young and it wasn't a big deal at all. And the amateur MMA competitions weren't a particularly big deal either. It was more inter-club kind of things. But again, it was just a way of testing what you were doing. And again, going back to the Aikido thing, I think that's a big criticism again that's leveled at it. You don't really pressure test some of what you're doing.
Right.
It's often done against a compliant opponent, and that obviously depends school to school, and sometimes it is done in more of a randori situation or a bit more free flowing, etc. But it's never really done in like a fully resistant kind of fight scenario, I suppose. So going from the boxing and the MMA, I kind of wanted that a little bit, even if it was just sparring, and then sparring turns into a little bit more of a competition. And then from there, it kind of went, oh, well, that worked for me, or this didn't work, and it just kind of, it gave you a bit of a testing ground for what you were doing.
So then what was that very first MMA? Now, had you ever been in any type of fight at all in your life, or was that your first time getting hit?
No, so I'd had some fights previously outside of the the martial arts practice. I think that was mainly due to being, I don't know, I look back on it now, and this was when I was 18, 19, 20 or so, and I was doing a little bit of unofficial door work at the time, at university and was working in bars and clubs and things. And I was going out quite a lot, and it was just part of that kind of being a 19, 20, 21-year-old. And yeah, there was a few, let's say, altercations and things like that. But yeah, nothing too heavy. So the physical confrontation side of it wasn't a big deal for me, really. Like I said, it was testing what I was learning and testing what I was doing. Like, can I pull off this technique that I've been training in class? Can I kind of, am I fit enough? Am I able enough? Is what I'm doing working? Do I need to focus more on something else? Like, it was just a way of me to test my martial arts, I suppose. And that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Nice. See, I always ask that question because I was training a person for an MMA fight probably over 10 years ago. And it was about 5 or 6 weeks before his fight. And he's like, I got to tell you something. I'm like, what? He goes, I've never been punched before. I'm like, what? You're getting in a cage in like 5 weeks. I'm like, all right.
Fire.
Yeah. So I put on like martial arts headgear, big boxing gloves. I'm not going to hit you hard. And I like half power. And he's like, damn. Like, dude,
what is this?
It's like, we got a lot of work to do.
How did he get on with it?
He actually did great, but he unfortunately ended up getting DQ'd because he got so much adrenaline. I mean, he came out and just exploded on this guy and just hit him and pretty much knocked him out. But the guy, his knee hit the ground, or his hand hit the ground, and he didn't stop his punch in time, so he got DQ'd for hitting a downed fighter. Sure. But even the guy afterwards, he's like, dude, you won that fight. I don't care what the judge says. So he knocked him out.
Well, it looks like he got over his fear of being hit at that point.
Exactly.
But then, came out swinging.
Yeah, I think he only got to do 2 fights, and his job made him quit. He was a manager, and they didn't want him coming in with his face all bruised up and stuff.
Black eyes are busted up.
Exactly. So thinking back to that, when you first became a junior instructor in Aikido to now, you're running your own school and stuff. Like, how do you think your teaching style has changed over the years?
When I was doing Aikido, it was always very regimented, and it was always heavily based on tradition. There was always a set structure to classes. It was always Sensei Dan or Sensei or whatever. Yeah, it was always very regimented, and I've kind of pushed against that a little bit more now with my school. We're very open, we're very community-based, we're not particularly strict in what we do. I'm Dan, I'm not Sensei, I'm not coach, I'm not anything. It's just Dan on the mats, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine for me. Like, we run a pretty modern martial arts class, which consists of kickboxing, self-defense, fitness, like some of the Filipino stuff like Kali, a bit of Jeet Kune Do as well. So we're kind of like a bit of a melting pot of the things that I've developed and learned over the years.
Okay.
So I don't really see it as me being above anyone else or anything like that, or I don't really see myself as an instructor. I just see myself as someone that's maybe done a little bit more mat time, got a little bit more experience, and wants to transmit that, and then people like it and keep coming back. So I think that's a cool thing.
Nice. So then talk a little bit about that. What led to you deciding to pursue it full time? Like you said, I read you were in the process of becoming a police officer and kind of changed your whole life around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I studied criminology and psychology at university, and did my degree in that, and then actually did a master's degree after. In civilization and terrorism, all with the kind of aim to become a police officer and then go into the counter-terrorism unit at some point, just because I found it really interesting. I thought it's such an interesting area to study and one that you can really deep dive. But yeah, upon coming out of university, I moved back home, back to a little town in the UK called Lincoln, and I just waited for Lincolnshire Police they said they were opening up, and they said that places were available and they were doing the next intake of officers and stuff. But the process was so slow, I think, from beginning to end, to the point of me saying, sorry, I'm going to go down a different route. I think it was about 2.5 years that I was waiting.
Wow.
And it's a long time to put your life on hold, waiting for a job interview or waiting for a fitness test or waiting for an assessment centre and things. Like, there was 6 months or even more in between everything. And it gives you a lot of thinking time. And everything I thought was just, what's the constant again that's always been in my life? And it was like, it's martial arts, it's my passion, it's what I read about, it's what I think about, it's what I watch on TV. Like, I'm a big martial arts geek. I don't think there's any other way of saying it. I'm a huge nerd, and I just want to take it all in and learn as much as I can. And I was like, well, if I can make that into a job, and if I can kind of, get to a point where I can make a good enough living to then do it full time, and then I can just spend my days teaching classes and then going and teaching myself, learning different styles, learning different arts, then that's a pretty good life to have, I think. And if you can encourage people and help them through tough times, and as martial arts has helped me, if I can translate that and pass that on to other people, I think that's a really important job, and one that I find a very big privilege to be able to do.
Nice. So then when you made that decision to not be a police officer, how long from then until you were doing it full time? How long did that take you to realize you're doing it?
It was a couple of years. So I was working part time at that point. Yeah, I was working part time at that point doing social media, but I was already looking at a thing called Defense Lab, which was by Andy Norman, because when I came back from university, I was obviously training the MMA. Went to Lincoln, found a place in Lincoln that did mixed martial arts training. Went there for an introduction, and there was a guy there behind the desk who's now one of my best friends, who said, "Oh, have you ever heard of KFM?" And I was like, "Nope, what's this KFM thing? I've come here for MMA, don't know what you're talking about." And that was the Casey fighting method, which was very street effective, very quite tough training, quite brutal, and founded by Justo Dieguez and Andy Norman. So I did, I think, a couple of privates, and I was kind of sold on that. I went, right, I want to focus on this now, not the MMA side. I want to go more into the self-defense side. So I trained in KFM for maybe 2-3 years.
Okay.
And then KFM split up due to, I think it was a disagreement between the founders. So it went off, and Casey by Justo, and Andy went off and did Defense Lab. And then I was seeing stuff around Defense Lab at the same time as I was working on social media and waiting for the police. And I was seeing kind of the conferences they were putting on, which was involving big names like Guru Bob Breen, who was one of Dan Santo's top instructors, Guru Phil Norman with his Ghost Fighter method, another one of Dan Santo's top instructors, people like Eddie Quinn, who does the approach system. They were all going to these conferences, and it seemed like the old JKD way of doing it, where you all kind of mix together and get a different kind of flavour, but everyone teaches, has respect for each other. And then they also said that they would give you kind of some of the business to develop a full-time school. Okay. So at that point, I had no knowledge really. All I had was social media, just working for this company. So I had that on my side, but I had no idea how to structure a class really of my own. When I was teaching Aikido, it was always, okay, well, you can run a class tonight, or go and run the class for me. It was never running my own school. It was always someone else's school. So kind of branding and building and doing this thing was like, oh, it's a bit daunting. And being part of a franchise in Defense Lab, that took some of it away for me. Whereas like the logo's done, the branding's done, the leaflets, the distribution, the marketing is kind of done for you. And the syllabus is done, so all you've got to do is just go out there and teach. So I was like, oh, that's quite an attractive prospect for someone that just kind of wants to find their feet, I suppose, in terms of learning martial arts and also learning the business side of it. If I was a black belt in martial arts, I was a white belt in martial arts business, perhaps. So I wanted to kind of develop my skills that way and then get up to a black belt in both. And Defense Lab seemed like a way of doing that. So I signed up to the franchise at that point and then was working full-time still, but then doing my classes at night on Tuesdays, Thursdays, I think, and maybe a Friday as well. I think it was Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I was doing classes straight after work, and I did that for maybe 2 years. Until I eventually took the leap and went full-time, which was a bit of a risk because I didn't really have the income, I didn't have the students, but I just thought I need to do this, I need to jump because I haven't got the time to market it the way that I want to market it. I haven't got the time to push this club as much as I want, and the end goal is to have my own martial arts academy, and I'm not going to get there if I keep working 9 to 5 and then teaching classes at 6 because I'm not giving the best classes because I'm tired, and I'm not really able to develop my own skills as well because I'm just working, quickly teaching, coming back, eating food, sleeping, repeat. So I needed to make a change, I think. So it was time to go, right, let's take the risk and go full-time.
Nice. And then what do you think was the biggest challenge then? Was it just getting the name out there and getting more students in?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's still a challenge now. Like, however long, 6-7 years now I've been doing it full time.
Okay.
And it's still the biggest challenge, marketing and consistently marketing. We run really fun classes, as I said, and that's kind of our USP. We're very, very family orientated, and we're very community based, and we're very into the mental health as well as the physical health. And we are like one big part of a community, I think, and that's what I like to kind of cultivate and build and empower. But yeah, it's still the hardest thing is getting people through the door. Once they're in the door, usually they stay and really enjoy what we're doing, but it's just that constant marketing, and it's not something I particularly enjoy. I'm not a natural salesman or anything like that. I'm a bit like humble, is that the right word? I don't really like to toot my own horn or anything, or put myself out there particularly. I just like to teach my classes and kind of get on with it. But I realise more and more that you need to put yourself out there more and more, because otherwise people won't hear about you. And you could be the best martial arts instructor in the world, but unfortunately, if you haven't got any students, it doesn't matter. Right. It's like you need that balance.
Well, my 38 years in martial arts, I can say the best instructors I've ever met are the humble ones. So
yes.
that's
good.
100%.
Yeah. I think you need to stay humble, don't you? Because it only takes one person to destroy that. It's like, never rise too much above your station, I don't think.
True. So now, did the COVID pandemic, did that affect your school quite a bit? Did you have to close down?
Yeah, that was a tricky period. So just before March 2020, when in the UK everything kind of locked down and things like that, it was a bit of a tricky transitional period, because I decided to leave the franchise and go out on my own and rebrand as Empower Martial Arts Academy. So we'd got all the branding done, I'd done the logo, I developed a new syllabus, I got the t-shirts printed, and I think we had about 2 weeks, and then we had to close down. And I was like, oh man, this isn't the best way to start, is it? And then we had to go on to online for the best part of a year and a half or so. So it was a tricky a tricky period to say the least.
Yeah, it's been such a mixture of people I've talked to, and some were able to maintain and do it fairly well, and I've unfortunately had a few guests that their schools had to close down. And
yeah.
How did your students take to the online stuff?
We were fairly ahead of the curve. We were going with what the schools were saying, so we thought if the schools closed down, then we're going to have to close down. So we kind of we were a little bit ahead of the curve on that and really planned in advance. What we didn't plan for was how long it was going to last for. We thought, maybe a month or two and we'll be back open. We didn't realise that it'd be 4, 5, 6 months, and even then it'd be outside classes. And I don't know about you, but the UK weather isn't always that reliable, even in the summertime. So sometimes it was cold, wet, raining, but the only option was to go and train outside. But yeah, we were ahead of the curve, I think, in terms of getting on top of it. And the day that the schools closed, the day after, we'd moved everything online. So we'd filmed a load of content and put it onto our YouTube channel for kids and adult classes. And then we'd also got onto Zoom and then just kept our timetable as it was at that point. So kids' classes were still as they were, the same days, the same times. Adult classes were the same days and same times. And then we were also adding more value as much as we could because we just wanted to keep alive and keep open.
Right.
And we wanted students to come back when we could open again. So we were doing like morning workouts during like the height of the pandemic, when people weren't really going to work and people were staying inside. We were doing morning family workouts. We were doing activity sheets for the kids. We were doing free workouts just for the community that we were putting out online. So come and have a Friday workout, get your endorphins going if everyone's feeling a little bit, shit about the situation and things.
Exactly.
It's like, come and have a bit of a workout and at least move your bodies a little bit, because it's too easy just to get into a routine of sitting in your pants, watching Netflix, drinking beer or wine all day, isn't it? And not moving around enough. So I think it was I think that was the most important time to get people moving, when there was not a whole lot of reason to move at that point, was there?
Nice. So then, with your background and all the styles you've studied, if someone asks you, what style do you teach at your school, what's your answer for that?
Yeah, so I say we teach a mixed martial arts syllabus. We break it down basically in terms of our days. So our Monday classes are Jeet Kune Do and Kali and some of the Filipino stuff. The Tuesday classes is like our syllabus class. Thursdays we have kickboxing with one of our coaches who's an ex-professional kickboxing champion.
Nice.
And one of my good friends. And then Friday sparring, Saturday's Kali, and then family classes. So we kind of break it down that way, but we just say that we're a mixed martial arts syllabus.
Okay.
But then we're also very honest in what we do. Like, we have there's a lot of martial arts clubs in Lincoln, where I'm based, and we have good relationships with them all. Like, I go and train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu every Wednesday, just kind of further improve my skills and have a bit of time to myself to not be a teacher anymore, to just be a learner again.
Right.
And we've got a really good relationship with them. And if someone's looking for striking or not just grappling, they'll send them over to us. If someone rings us and go, look, I'm really interested in jiu-jitsu and grappling and competing, then we'll send them over to them. So
Nice.
it's a nice little scratch my back, scratch your back situation. So yeah, we're a mixed syllabus, I would say, or a mixed art.
Cool. That's good. So talk about how the blog started and what kind of led to that.
Yeah, so the blog started just because I was training in so many different things. I was training in the KC, I was training in the KFM. I was training in the KC, I was training in Krav Maga, I was training in fitness classes, I was doing my Aikido still, I was teaching Aikido, I was reading a lot of martial arts books, I was going to a lot of seminars, a lot of open events and kind of, like weekend events and things like that, meeting a lot of different people. And I thought, I need to kind of write this all down because there's a lot of thoughts going on in my head and things I need to try and piece together. So I just started writing, and then generally it was received quite well. Just started putting it out to different groups in the Facebook world. People seemed to enjoy it, and then it started just growing more and more. Managed to get some people on board for interviews, which grew it further. And it just kind of organically grew at that point. I didn't really push it or anything. Just kept writing articles and kind of putting it out there, and people seemed to read it and like it, enjoy it, and then join the group and get involved in the community.
And how long ago did that start?
That was in 2010 maybe.
Okay. About how
2010,
often do you usually put a new one out, a new blog?
So recently, since the pandemic and since we've been open again, I haven't really done much with it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I hit the YouTube channel really hard over lockdown because it was a really good excuse to talk to people and still get my dose of nerdiness talking to martial artists, even though we couldn't train physically. So I really hit the Martial View YouTube page really, really hard then. Did lots of interviews with lots of good guys, like who we've got Joe Egan, who was Mike Tyson's sparring partner, who Mike Tyson called like the toughest white guy in the world. We've got people like Nicholas Sagniak, who's Savat Golden Gloves champion. I've talked with people like Harry Flexman, who's the fight dad, who's doing good things in the Kali world. Phil Norman, Bob Breen, Lee Charles, who's done Gangs of London on TV.
Okay.
And is making Richard Norton, who's done some really good stuff. So some good names, yeah. And it was just, like I said, my way to get a bit of a martial arts fix and satisfy my nerdiness.
Okay, nice. And so now I'm just looking at like the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's the YouTube channel you're talking about, or is the podcast separate?
Yeah, there's a podcast on Spotify, but then there's the YouTube channel which shows the videos.
Okay.
And then the Spotify is just the audio. And then the blog, The Martial View, is just more of the writing as well.
Have you done the podcast lately? It's
No, I think the last one was a while ago. Yeah, it was 9 months maybe.
That's something you're hoping to pick up again, or?
I don't know. It's not really my priority at the moment, to be honest with you. Like my priority now is my academy. We got a full-time academy 6 months ago.
Nice.
And signed the lease on it and things. So my priorities now is building that up and building our community back up after post-pandemic and things like that. And that's the most important part for me.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my focus at the moment.
And then what led to you deciding to write your first of 2 books?
Yeah, so that kind of came from the blog again, and that came from meeting people in the martial arts world. And myself and a friend called Lucci, we decided, why don't we go around and interview some people, and then we'll compile it and stick it all into a book. So we did, and then I think it was 2015, Martial Masters Volume 1 was released, or 2016 maybe.
Okay.
And that has some good names in it, like Andy Norman, Phil Norman, Bob Breen, Eddie Quinn, people with good stories, good people in the martial arts with good stories, and that made for interesting reads. So yeah, we thought that was a good thing to do, basically, as a little thing of legacy. And like a couple of the people in the book are no longer with us, so it's a nice way to kind of pay homage to their life, I suppose.
Right.
And that'll be there forever. That'll be there forever and always available. And then during the lockdown, again, to satisfy my geekiness and to stop myself drive myself crazy, I decided to write Volume 2. So we went international on that one and got some good names like Rick Fay from the Minnesota Kali Group. We got Eric Paulson, and we got a couple of other people as well, like Rico Franco, who's a bare knuckle boxing champion here in the UK. So again, some interesting people. Victor Estima, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So again, we tried to get focused more maybe on the sports side of it rather than the self-defense or the traditional side.
And who was the first one you met from the Minnesota Kali Group?
Yeah, Rick Fay.
Oh, okay. I live in Minnesota, so I'll have to...
well, there you go. You should
might have to reach out to him.
yeah, definitely go and check him out. So he's got an amazing pedigree in Dodana and Santo.
Okay.
And then now runs the Minnesota Kali Group, which is worldwide, and is one of Guru and Santo's kind of top guys.
Nice.
Teaching JKD, Panatukan, and Kali and things. So yeah, cool. Definitely.
Yeah, I'll have to add him to my list for a possible guest. So
100%. Yeah, he's a good guy to talk to. He's very interesting. Yeah.
Nice. So what is some advice you would give someone? You've trained in so many different styles. You've run a couple different schools. So what is some advice you'd give someone looking to join martial arts for the first time? They've never done it before, and they just want to know, what should I look for? What should I avoid?
Yep, definitely. So I'd say try different clubs. Don't get into the thing of just falling into the first club that you try. Go and test different clubs and see which one feels best for you. Maybe have an idea of what you kind of want to focus on. So do you want to focus on the striking? Do you want to focus on grappling? Do you want to focus on wrestling? What range of fighting do you really want to work at? And then, just talk to other people as well. Look at reviews, speak to people that maybe, that also train. Referrals are always a good way of doing it. We get lots of referrals from our academy. I think it's our number 2 way of doing it, because people enjoy the training. They then tell their friends, and then the friends come along, which again helps to build the community. So I'd say, those are the main things. Like, have an idea roughly of what you want in your head, of what area you want to focus on. Because I think it's always good to focus specifically to start off with before you start expanding. Otherwise, I think it can be a little bit overwhelming. If you're learning striking, you're learning wrestling, you're learning grappling all at the same time. It's a bit like, whoa, this is a lot. I think maybe focus on one, get good at kickboxing, then add a different element into your game, and then or get good at groundwork or wrestling, and then add some striking in, or vice versa.
Nice.
And just try different places and see which one fits. Check the atmosphere. Do you walk in? Is it a big fighters gym where it's a bit spit and sawdust and there's teeth everywhere and people with black eyes and broken noses? And it's like, if that's what you want to do, then awesome. If you want to become a professional fighter, then maybe that's the route for you. But I don't think the majority of people want that. I think the majority of people want to get a little bit fitter. They want to find their community, and they want to do something to learn a new skill. And if they ever need to, hopefully they never will have to, but learn to defend themselves a little bit as well.
Nice. Yeah, I like how you mentioned referrals, because I know it's definitely gotten better over the years. But I know when I first got involved, it was so, the competition was so strict. You'd never have a school referring you to another one. I mean, it's just. I mean, I remember one of the first times I did that, I referred someone to an MMA school, and I bumped into the instructor. He's like, "Did you send someone to our school?" I'm like, "Yeah."
What?
And he was like surprised by it.
Craziness.
Of course I did. It's like, that's what they wanted to do. So
I think it's so important to stay honest and true about that, because you could bullshit and say, yeah, well, we do everything here, but equally, you're just doing a disservice to your students. And I think you need to focus on what you're focusing on. And, you know, martial arts teaches respect, discipline, honesty, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, unfortunately, not all instructors actually abide by what they teach. And I think it's really important to kind of mirror what you're teaching your juniors or even teaching your adults sometimes, to mirror that and to be honest and kind of go, look, this isn't really what we teach, but I can refer you to someone really, really good. I think that's the best way because, you know, they're going to get more from it and you can kind of go. And then you're going to get a better clientele as well that really want to be there rather than going, oh, actually, I wanted loads of groundwork. And you're going, all right, we're going to do a kickboxing class.
Yeah, I know one thing we did years ago, and I want to start doing it again, is 2 or 3 years in a row, we did like an open martial arts weekend where luckily the gym I train at is big. We have like 4,000 square feet, so we have a lot of open space.
Nice.
And we invited over a weekend, in, I think it was like 15 different styles.
Perfect.
And basically people paid, I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks, and it all went to charity. We had in that one weekend we had traditional taekwondo, we had aikido, we had Japanese aikido, we had judo, we had jiu-jitsu, MMA, boxing, Shaolin kempo. I mean, and people could come in for like 1 to 2 hours and actually sample it, get in and do it, and it was so cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's the best way. We did something really similar in 2020.
Nice.
Again, online, but we did it for charity, like you did. So we did a 24-hour challenge where me and my students, again, this was a way of just keeping them motivated to train online. But we thought, right, let's put this towards a charity and we'll do 24-hour classes in 24 hours, or 24 classes, sorry, in 24 hours. And we'll get different instructors to come and teach like a Zoom class or something.
That's cool.
So similar to what you said, we had kickboxing, we had boxing, we had traditional arts like Tai Chi we had in. We had, all sorts, just over that 24-hour period. We had yoga, just
nice.
A little bit of everything. And we managed to raise like £2,000, I think, for charity. But we're
Very
doing it again next month. So we're doing it again on the 20th, but we're doing it in person this time now that we can.
Okay.
So we're going to do it at the academy. So we've got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've got MMA, we've got traditional Jiu-Jitsu, we've got Kali, we've got Balintawak, we've got, all sorts, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Bartitsu, self-defense, again, similar to what you said, like a bit of a come and try it, give it a go, raise some money for charity, and my students get a bit of a flavor of everything else as well.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm hoping to do that again soon. It was over 10 years last time we did it, so I definitely want to do it again.
Yeah, get on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I will. So I know you talked about you'd done some MMA, so I'm curious then, what are your thoughts overall on MMA and the UFC, and is that something you're a fan of?
I don't really follow the UFC that much. I follow specific fighters. There's one up and coming called Jack Shaw at the moment, who's based in Wales, and he's really good. I actually interviewed his dad for Martial Masters Volume 2.
Okay.
I think he fought last night, but he's got a 16-win record, I think it is. I think 1 draw, and I think yesterday was his first loss, unfortunately. I think he got caught in a submission. But he's definitely one up and coming, but he's fighting the UFC at the moment. So yeah, I think MMA is awesome. I think it's a good thing. I think it branches all the disciplines and it shows what works, If you can strike, if you can wrestle, if you can grapple on the floor, then you're doing pretty well. And that's what you need to have a good system of martial arts, I think.
Nice. So are you more a fan of like the old school UFC from like the 90s before they added all the rules, or do you like the newer stuff?
I like both. I like the old school for like the pure brutalness, and like it made really good TV. Yep. Like you said, it was no rules, wasn't it? And people getting a head kick left, right, and centre, teeth flying out the octagon and things like that. And it was good TV and it was entertaining. But I admire now the discipline and the skill set, because I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu especially has just evolved so much over the past kind of 20, 30 years.
Right.
Almost become a separate thing to what it was, 20, 30 years ago when it first came out. And I like the fact now that mixed martial artists are mixed martial artists. They're not specific style versus style. I think that was interesting, but I think it showed that if you get put on your back, the grappler's always going to win. Just, 99.9% of the time. If you keep it standing, the striker's going to win. So I think that question's kind of answered. But now it's like, okay, it's good. Like who wants it more? Who's got the better training, who's had the better fight camp, who was just luckier on the night sometimes. So I think the fighters that fight MMA now are really good, well-rounded athletes. And I like that, rather than just being brawlers, perhaps, who just want to have a scrap.
So now you've studied in a lot of styles. Is there any styles that you haven't been able to try yet that you'd want to?
Yeah, so I'd want to try something like Tai Chi. I quite like to do that.
Okay.
Just for something softer, like a little bit more relaxed. Like I said, I'm getting into my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. I'm really enjoying it. It's really difficult, and it's a bit of eating humble pie again. When you think, you're a good martial artist, they get put on your back and you're a bit out your comfort zone, and it's difficult and it's tricky, and it's not always good when you're getting smashed about on the floor and you can't breathe, but it's a learning curve. It's good. So yeah, those I really want to continue on with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and yeah, I'd like to learn something like Tai Chi. I think
Very
so.
cool.
Those are the two ones that really stand out to me.
Nice. So who are some names, and they can be people you've actually met, trained with, talked to, or people you've never met before, but who are some names that you'd put on the top of your list for just martial artists that they inspire you, you look up to them, you just think they've helped the martial arts worldwide, just something like that, you know, 'cause someone like a lot of people obviously would pick like a Bruce Lee, but who are some names you'd put on the top of your list?
Yeah, sure. So I think number one's got to be Bruce Lee for me. Like, I'm sure that's pretty common, but I've got him.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got him tattooed on my arm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm that much of a nerd that the tattoo is there. I've got a martial
That's
arts
cool.
sleeve, so
That's
he's got
cool.
to be number one, just for what he did in terms of bringing martial arts to the masses, and in terms of its cultural and bringing like East and West and things like that. I think that's a huge thing. And then leading on from that, I think Guru Daniel Santo. Again, unfortunately, I've never met him, but I'd love to. I'd love to go out to LA at some point and go and meet him. And again, just for what he's done in continuing on Bruce Lee's kind of vision for JKD, and then adding some of the elements of Kali and things like that. Sensei Joe Tambu has got to be in there for me because he was my main influence in Aikido and Yoshinkan Aikido. Rick Fay, people like that. Yeah, there's loads. I try and take what I can from every martial artist that I either train with, talk to, or see, and you know, I think they've all got something to offer. But yeah, it's hard to pin them all down, isn't it? But
Yeah,
even like Eric
definitely.
Paulson, I think is amazing. Some of the BJJ guys are phenomenal. Some of the Filipino martial artists. I think it's cool stuff.
Good. So is there a philosophy you've learned in all your years of martial arts that just rises to the top? It's super important to you. You keep coming back to it?
Oh, that's a deep question. I think it's what I said earlier. Be honest with people, and just
Okay.
be nice, and don't think you're like the dog's bollocks because you've done martial arts for a few years and you've got your black belt and things. It doesn't actually mean anything. Keep learning. Be honest with people, and yeah, don't become so enamored by yourself that you forgot that you're a student of the martial arts. There's always going to be someone out there better than you, or someone that you can learn from.
Nice. I like that. Good. All right, I got some fun ones to wrap it up.
Okay,
Do you have
cool.
a favorite martial arts book?
Ooh. So, The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, I've got to
Yep.
say, or the Hicks and Gracie Breathe. That was a really good book. I think
Oh.
I read. Yeah, I think I read that in like one sitting. I just smashed through that one.
Really?
And that was really interesting to me. Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah, that one's on my list. I haven't read that one yet.
Top recommendation, that one. Yeah, it's
Okay.
really good.
I will check that one.
Oh,
out
and
for
Martial
sure.
Masters Volume 1 and Volume 2 as well, of course. What an idiot.
Obviously.
They come top, yeah.
Well, normally
Forget about
I would
Tao
say
Jeet Kune Do.
you can't pick your own, so that, but that's okay. Those were implied, I think. So that's good. That's good. Nice. All right. How about a favorite martial arts video game? Were you ever a gamer?
Mortal Kombat.
Nice. The
Or
original.
Tekken. Yeah,
Okay.
or Tekken. Actually, I was more of a Tekken guy than a Mortal Kombat. Yeah,
Me
I
too.
like martial law. I like Eddie Guerrero for the capoeira.
Mhm.
And yeah, many an hour wasted on playing Tekken.
Yeah, I worked in a Walmart when I was in college, and I
Yeah.
remember when like Tekken first came out, and we set it up as a demo. Like if,
Yeah.
if no customers were playing it, we'd be over there playing it while we're
Straight
working.
on there, yeah.
Spending an hour, supposed to be stocking shelves. We're playing Tekken. So.
Like, nah, sorry, I just completed it, yeah.
Nice. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Oh, Kingdom is really good. I really enjoyed Kingdom.
Yes, great show.
That was really good. Cobra Kai, I'm kind of into, even though it's
I
well
love
cheesy.
I love
But
Cobra
I'm
Kai.
quite enjoying it. Yeah, I'm quite enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to the next season. So yeah, those are the two ones, top TV series, I think, for me.
Yeah, so is it September 9th or 10th next season's
I
coming
think
out?
so, yeah, it's not long.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
See, and I'm one that, the whole reason I got into martial arts was the movie The Karate Kid. So
Really? Okay, yeah.
So when that came out, I'm like, oh, I gave it one episode. I'm like, if it's cheesy, I'm not gonna, if it's horrible,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. And I was hooked after the first. I'm like, this is so good.
It is cheesy though, isn't it? But it's unapologetically cheesy.
It's cheesy,
it's
but
like-
it's nostalgic cheesy.
It is,
I mean,
exactly, yeah. It's nostalgically cheesy, and it's like, it knows exactly what it's doing. It's
Exactly.
like, it's just fun and easy watching, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm hoping we get 2 or 3 more seasons out of it. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
me too. It'd be good.
Lots of story to tell.
100%. Yeah.
Nice. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
You see, I want to say Enter the Dragon,
Mm-hmm.
but I bet everyone says that. But yeah, Enter the Dragon's up there. The Raid's really good. Big
good
fan of the
one.
Raid.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of the Filipino stuff in there. And yeah, I like some of the old Jackie Chan movies as well, like Police Story.
Nice.
Police Story 1 and 2. I
Yep.
think they're really good just for the stunts, and even some of his later ones like Shanghai Noon and Rush Hour, things like that. Just
A lot of good ones.
Yeah, the comedic effect. Yeah, big fan of Jackie Chan.
Nice. All right, this final question doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. It can be. It doesn't have to be. Just a
Okay.
favorite movie fight scene.
Ooh, interesting. Favorite movie fight scene? I think I've got to say The Raid again. So
Yeah.
some of the fights in the raid are amazing.
You're my second guest that said that one this week. So.
Oh, was it? Okay. I
Yep.
feel good
So that's
about
a good
that.
answer. Yep.
Yeah, I feel good about that then. Yeah, that's
Nope.
okay.
100%. I mean, it's a great. I need to rewatch it. I haven't watched it in a while. I need to go and watch it again. But
Yeah, there's a raid 2 as well, isn't there? I don't think I've seen it.
I don't think I've seen the sequel either. No.
No, I need to get on that. That might be tonight's viewing when I've finished.
Oh, I don't think I have time. I have 2 more interviews today yet. So.
Oh, okay. You're a busy man, yeah.
I'm staying very, very. 2 more interviews, and I still got to edit like 9 episodes. So.
Ouch.
I know, but it's okay. I love
No
doing
rest for the
it.
wicked.
But...
Yeah, good.
Nice. So, anything else you want to mention? Get out there before I let you go. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff, and I'll put links for your blog and the podcast, your YouTube channel, your school, everything on the show. So, anything else you can think of?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, check out the blog if you'd like to. Like I said, it's not really doing that much at the moment, but who knows? In the future, maybe the podcast will come back because I did enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just finding the time. And I had in my head, like in a perfect world, when I got my full-time academy, I had in my head that I'd have a little podcast area where it would be like branded and people could come in, they teach a seminar for my students or teach an open seminar, and then we'd do a podcast after. So maybe one day that will become a reality as well. So
That's a cool idea.
Yeah. So I was like, so maybe one day that will happen. So you'll have to head over to the Martial View on YouTube and click subscribe and see if it happens. And then if you're interested in martial arts, I would recommend, of course I would, checking out Martial Masters 1 and 2. Because it's got some genuinely good names in there and people that have given up their time to kind of speak to me, which I'm very, very pleased about and very humbled by. There's some top names and some top interesting stories of fighting in Japan and street fights and all sorts, competitions, and just the life of a martial artist. I think everyone's got a few stories if you train for a few times.
So is Amazon the best way to order those, or can you
get
it
it's
right
available
off your
on Amazon.
website?
Yeah, Amazon worldwide is on there, so yeah.
Cool. I'll put a link for those.
If you're in
out
the
there
UK
also.
as well, you can get them through me. But Amazon's probably the easiest way for quickness.
It's nice. Well, like I said, I'll put links for everything out there, but I appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm definitely going to order the books. I haven't read the books yet, but I definitely want to check them out because, if anything, it's more guest ideas for me. So
yeah, you can just work your way through.
Exactly.
Excellent.
But I just want to thank you for your time. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I will be in touch when the episode's ready to go.
You are more than welcome. Thank you for having me on.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Brian. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.